Mike Cashman here, and I'm introducing a video on moving step by step beyond I told you so. So I'm raising the question as to whether I can make it up to the top of this staircase with a friend. Couple of things. One, I talked about the floor representing Tory supporter. It could equally represent somebody who is apathetic, undecided, uncertain, and that might in fact be more important. I didn't emphasise that. Secondly, do ask questions. I talk about the path up the stairs being different for everybody. Find out where people are at the moment, what they're concerned about, what their problems are. Let's see what the solution to those might be and see if that solution leads people up the staircase. Okay, enjoy the video. I'm talking about moving beyond I told you so. But who am I talking to? Let's bring this poster and you'll see in a minute why the camera is in this position. So yesterday I released a video called Moving Beyond I Told You So, and since then 2,000 people have watched it, which has somewhat taken me aback, partly because I haven't really promoted it at all. And I certainly in that suggested that we don't say I told you so. But what should we say, or what should we ask? I've got some suggestions here. Nothing that I'm doing here is aimed to be very prescriptive. It may sound like it sometimes. I'm just trying to come up with ideas. But here's the circle divided into thirds of committed opponents. We may never persuade them. Committed supporters. We may not have to do much to have them on our side. But all these people in the middle, perhaps a third, not very visible, so represented by white stickers, but they're all there, perhaps just fed up with the discussion. So what sort of things can we say? Indeed, what sort of things can we ask? What I'm going to suggest is that it's something of a ladder or a staircase. And it may be different for everybody, but I'm going to illustrate with some examples. So down here on the floor, this floor is the massive population who are ready to support the Tories at the moment, who are not questioning them, the 40% plus or whatever it is, still supporting Boris Johnson despite everything that's happened. And we may often feel the case for not doing that is overwhelming. Can't we get you to a place in which you oppose this man? But that may be a long way away. It may be a case of one step at a time. So, and you probably won't be able to see the posters from here, but well, I'll try and blow them up on the video. So level 0 is unquestioning support for Tory Brexit. So that's the floor. That's where we are at the moment. And it's always good to ask questions. Do you know that Brexit has been harmful for many sectors? Maybe not for you, but you know about the difficulties with exporting. You know that musicians' careers are wrecked. Are you aware of that? That may be a place that we can get people to acknowledge or to understand that there's an issue there. And right at these levels, I'm not going to talk a lot about the books and the music, but this is where, or starting from here, hearing a little bit of the music, lovely tax breaks, whatever, may just, the chance to see one of the books because you've left it somewhere where people pick it up, or you give it to them. That may raise a bit of awareness. But, to say that Brexit has been harmful for many people, that shouldn't be too contentious. We know there are, some people will say, well, there are winners and losers, there are teething troubles, but okay, yes, there are troubles. What might the next step be? But Brexit has minimal or no tangible benefits, nothing that you can measure. People may come up with, we can make our own laws now. And of course, you see many of the James O'Brien videos, calls where he asked people to come up with, okay, so what law is it that you want to make that you couldn't make before? But wherever possible, asked as a question. can you identify and quantify any tangible benefits? That might be step 2. Yeah, still good to hear a bit of the music. Where could we get to from there? Do you feel the Brexit that we have is a mistake? Now, there's actually quite a lot of people think that. They don't all think it should be reversed. A lot of people are in a mood of, well, we are where we are, we have to make the best of it, and whatever, what indeed is the Labour Party's position, for example, or Keir Starmer's at any rate. But recognising the steps that we've made so far, it may be possible to get to that Brexit was a mistake. Now, the point about these steps is there's a number of steps. Some of them may seem like big steps. My point is nobody's going to jump them all at once. They're probably not going to do several at once. I'm maybe talking to somebody and I'm going to represent them by this pair of slippers. Talking to a slipper person, it's by asking questions and understanding where that person is that I'll get an understanding of, are we on the floor? Is there any chance of moving to the first step? Now, I'm not talking deeply about methods for doing this, just introducing the concept of the ladder, but the best book on that whole process is Let's Talk About Bregs by Peter Cook. And you can look at that. You can look at the way that he talks about different sorts of dialogue and so on. Well worth getting into that. But on with the steps. Suppose that I've got a slipper person up to recognising that maybe Brexit was a mistake. What's next? Just, out of interest, I'll show you what this is. Does the person understand that the rules that are applying to us are the general rules applying to a third country? They haven't been changed. The EU hasn't suddenly decided to make it more difficult for countries that aren't in the EU. We chose to be not in the EU. What might the next step be? The Brexit adverse consequences. Are there any consequences that are not an inevitable result of the Boris Johnson deal? Now, again, this is not a step anybody's going to jump to right from the floor. It's a question of going through some intermediate steps. Maybe these, maybe others. This is an illustration. What might the next step be? Do you agree that we haven't got the sunlit uplands that the Brexit leaders promised? No? Or do you think we've actually achieved it? Does it feel like sunlit uplands to you? A glorious new era for the British economy? Possibly a big one, but if the sunlit uplands was deception, do you agree that the Tories are still misleading us? So we've got to step 7, perhaps. Oh, no, it's still down on step 3. So I've got to have a conversation and see whether, step by step, moving up one of these steps might take a month with a particular person. But let's just suppose that slipper person recognises that the Tories are misleading us. I'm not going to come to the camera again, but would you say that the Tories have been damaging the UK? Oh, I'm actually off the camera. But step 8 and this little landing here, would you say the Tories have been damaging UK? And step 9, would you agree safety and well-being of citizens should be key concerns of UK government? 10, how could we get a different government that could have UK's best interests at heart? Now, I'm so far away now that if you're on the floor, if you're the complete support for the Tory government, this is a position you're never going to get to quickly, or not even perhaps recognise it's there. It's a question of going step by step. But those steps are not going to be the same for everybody, because that was slipper person, but suppose the slippers have no particular significance, they're just a pair of shoes that happen to be here. I'm not saying that's the path for old people, but having dealt with or having explored stuff with slipper person, I want to talk to you about again, no particular significance, brown shoe person. So, brown shoe person is absolutely fed up with Brexit, doesn't want to know about Brexit at all. So, is not going to go onto any steps that have anything to do with Brexit. However, there could be issues in terms of what the current government's been doing that might move brown shoe person from unquestioning support from the government, because can we agree, right, and I'm going to go up these steps without any mention of Brexit, can we agree many people have died from COVID? Well, that should be non-controversial. Can we recognise that the UK has had more deaths than most? And of course there's question of per head of population, and is it because our population is more dense or just because our Prime Minister is more dense? I can't, within the space of this video, go into all the facts and figures behind this, but you can research these or you can look at some of my other videos that cover that. So if the UK has had more deaths than most, what were the major mistakes? Can we get into a discussion with brown shoe man, who doesn't want to talk about Brexit, or brown shoe person, about what were the major mistakes? And maybe a little look at either the book or the music might help that discussion. Let's ask, for example, is it okay to favour unqualified cronies for PPE over competent people? Because we know that's been done. National Audit Office report tells us that. Is it, if there's accepted that there's a bit of an issue there, is it right to spend £37 billion on a track and trace system that has been ineffective? How do we know it's ineffective? Well, it misses support for isolation. The House of Commons committee recognised it had been ineffective. The second wave, where Dido Harding had all the money, all the resources that she wanted and time to prepare, was more deadly than the first. In fact, how do you feel about appointing an inexperienced crony, say your friend's wife, as the head of public health, and without telling him you were going to do it, sacking the man who's got 41 years experience in public health in order to do that? Now, here's a question. I made a whole video about this. When Boris Johnson says that the PPE contracts have all been published, do you believe him, or do you believe the government lawyers who say that there's 100 contracts that weren't published at that time? They can't both be right. So which do you reckon it is? So do you accept, and I know I'm a long way from the floor here, that the Tories have been enriching their cronies, let's come to the camera, hiding, as we've just seen, the evidence, the contracts they still do not want to show us, and so people have died, for example, because of inadequate PPE, because the cronies who had no experience in supplying it, some of them supplied the wrong stuff. So we've got a step 8, and I'm going to go a different way just for fun at the top of the stairs. I designed this staircase 17 years ago. So next step, I'm not coming down, I'm a long way from the floor, but if you've made it up to these steps, oh, brown shoe person is not there, I'm going to go back to where brown shoe person is and have that dialogue, and maybe bit by bit brown shoe person gets there, brown shoe person realises there's a bit of an issue with the Tories, and maybe we get to the Tories are not fit to govern, and how can we get to having a different government that could have Tories' interests at heart? Again, that step that I'm at is a long way from the bottom, and if you're actually at the bottom, then there's no way that you can get to, no way you can even see that position that we got to step by step. So people sometimes get discouraged in conversations with Tory supporters. Say, I mean, I've been trying to convince them, I've been providing all this evidence, but they just don't listen to any of it. But are we trying to get them from the bottom step right to the top in one go? And in particular, do we understand where they're at? And that's where it's well worth reading Peter Cook's book. Are they at floor level, or are any of those steps, say the path of those steps may be different for different people. I'm not saying it's the same path for everybody, that's why I illustrated it with 2 different ones, but there could be many different ones. What I can promise you is that nobody is going to jump from here right up to the top in one go. So if you're getting discouraged, are you talking to the committed opponents, in which case maybe don't bother? Or are you having some sort of interaction? Do you see some sort of possibility of movement? But do you feel you're not achieving everything you wanted to? Well, let's dial the ambitions down to one step at a time. Because how do we get up that staircase? With the people that we're trying to go up there with. I've lost the brown shoes. I'll go back up with Slipper. Maybe Slipper can see this lot. How do we get up this staircase? One step at a time. Oh, here are brown shoes. They'd already made it. And together we can get to, maybe we could have a different and better government. So that's my suggestions as to the staircase of political awareness. People won't do it all in one go, but one step at a time may be possible. If you have been, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more of these videos. As you've seen, I mapped out the 2 paths there. There's the Brexity path, and I've got the channel Brexit's a Trick Not a Treat. But there's also the material which is more about the events of 2020, about coronavirus, and the YouTube channel is called I Don't Beg Pardon. That's short for the title track of our COVID musical, I Don't Beg Pardon, I'm Talking Bollocks from the Rose Garden. But so 2 channels to subscribe to. Depending on what sort of device you're watching on, you may see a button on the screen that makes it simple to subscribe to those channels. But do find them if you can. Brexit's a Trick Not a Treat and I Don't Beg Pardon. And do buy the books and the music, because for reasons explained in the first Moving Beyond I Told You So, that can help you and your friends and the campaign of getting rid of this dreadful Tory government, and maybe undoing some of the damage. Thank you.